Hello, everybody. Welcome and namaste once again to the day three of the world's largest global summit that now goes virtual, Thai Global Summit 2020, hosted this year by the Hyderabad chapter, where we redefine entrepreneurship in the new world. The summit, which is specially designed for the entrepreneurs by the entrepreneurs, where the brightest mind from the industry come together to share their secret mantras to success, where we dissect entrepreneurship for you from the technical, financial, emotional, political, interpersonal, and all the other kind of perspectives that you can think of. 40,000 plus registration, over 350 speakers, 20,000 plus startups from across 25 nations, 135 plus investors, and almost 100 plus large companies coming for the marketplace. This is your chance to make the most of this particular event, Thai Global Summit 2020. And coming up next is another very interesting session. Well, this is the first session in Audi 5, but we started pretty early. So that's why I'm telling you that this is the next session that is coming up. The session is called T Hub. It's for incubators, accelerators, IAS, new roles and new opportunities for so a particular opportunity for all the people who are looking to find the incubators or accelerator and accelerate your business to the next level and achieve your dreams, guys. Moderating this session is going to be Mr. Ravi Narayan. He is the CEO of T Hub Hyderabad. Joining him in conversation is Incubator Ray Naval, MD, Head of Capital and Ecosystem, Mars Discovery District, Toronto. Corporate, Aftab Mathur Director, Innovation, Investment, Temsec Singapore. Government, Ramanathan, Mission Director, Atal Innovation Mission. Mr. Ravi Narayan, over to you.
Thank you, Akriti. That was a absolutely energetic introduction to all of us. I'm sure it has woken up me already. He was saying that it was past his bedtime. So good morning, good evening to everyone. Welcome to my fellow panelist, Mr. Ramanan, joining us from Delhi. He's the mission director for Atal Innovation Mission. And, it's one of those very large flagship initiatives by the government of India to really propel the startup ecosystem in India. I'm also joined by Ray. Ray used to be in Bangalore and now he's in Toronto. In fact, he had a much better background behind him, the Mars itself. He's part of the capital and funding ecosystem in Mars. He heads that the whole initiative in Toronto, Canada. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you.
And then we have yet another time zone, which is Aftab. Aftab Mathur is the Director of Investments at Temasek out of Singapore. So we have all the time zones covered. Welcome to everyone. It's a truly global summit for us as well as it has been for all other participants across the world who have been not just participating in serious discussions. There has also been very interesting Bollywood nights that I attended last night and the previous night before that. So it's truly a conference that is not just doing serious work, but it's also bringing the like-minded folks together to really bond, network, and build the next normal of the ecosystems across the world. So welcome once again. So I just wanted to introduce the topic a little bit. I think we are all aware of the way the startup ecosystems are evolving across the world. As in, there was a lot of interesting growth that happened all across the world, including India, which became the third largest ecosystem through all the work that the government of India, under the leadership of Mr. Ramanan and others, various other cities, Silicon Valley, of course, being the largest, and then New York, Boston, Tel Aviv, in Israel, and in Europe. So a lot of things have happened, and then suddenly it hit a wall in February, March. And while almost about 15 to 20% of the startups will probably never make it to the end of this year, maybe more in some places, uh, some 20-25% have just absolutely propelled themselves to a different level, because the opportunities that they could have only dreamt of in January of 2020 have suddenly become multifold, large opportunities for them. They have been able to harness those opportunities and grow phenomenally well. And about 50 to 55% of the startups somewhere in the middle are just focused on profitability, focused on making sure that they stay alive so that they can see 2021 and really do what they can do with that. So I think this is the constituency that we are trying to serve as incubator accelerators and corporate funds. So we look at this and say, well, if that's all happening to our startups, what is it that we should be doing differently? What is it that we should be looking at differently? What are the opportunities for us? Do we need to pivot ourselves? Do we really need to do something differently? Because obviously one of the very, very fundamental things that a lot of incubators provided was space. And a lot of startups are saying, well, we are working from home. Things are going just fine. In fact, it's even better because I get this, better food. Maybe I get to exercise a little bit more. I don't have this commute that takes away, a couple of hours of my time. So it looks like, I have a great work-life balance. So should I be really coming back and mingling with other startups, mingling with other entrepreneurs, those you know, uh, coffee machine conversations, are they really important? This whiteboarding, is this really important? The attending events in person, is that any important? So as you can see, in Ray's background, there is this Mars Discovery District. This is a fabulous place that has been created in the city of Toronto. So obviously there is a purpose behind the space, behind the ability for bringing people physically to these spaces and making things happen. So what we will try and do is try to get perspectives from different parts of the world and different people who work with incubator accelerators across the world, and begin with their opening remarks, and then we can start going into some of the details as we go along. So with that, I would like to invite Mr. Ramnan. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so please, Mr. Ramnan, if you can just start with your opening remarks on this matter.
Thank you, Ravi. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the people who have logged on from different parts of the world. And thank you, Ravi, for giving me an opportunity to participate in this very distinguished set of panelists and deliberate on a topic I think that is becoming increasingly not only relevant, but very important for all of us to look at. And that is the world of innovation, the world of entrepreneurs, and the world of startups. As all of you are aware, India is already being perceived as a startup nation of the world. We have more than 55,000 startups right now from India. As I understand, there are more than 60 unicorns who have come up by Indian innovators in different parts of the world, and about 34 of them are based in India. So indeed, this has become a very important topic, not only for India, but for the rest of the world, because if you look at the startup world, there were, it's not something new. It has been there since the Y2K days, the .NET boom that was there. But what has happened over the years is the startup industry has also matured. The venture capital industry has matured. Everybody now knows what it means to run a startup. I mean, people who are beginning it, there's not a gold rush towards startups the way it used to be there in the days in several years ago. And therefore, I would say all the points that you mentioned, that people, the startup right from the beginning is looking at sustainability. How am I going to sustain myself? How am I going to have that runway to be able to meet unexpected problems like COVID-19, which has struck in an unprecedented manner across the world, and which has disrupted supply chains, which has disrupted lives and livelihoods, and which has disrupted the countries through national lockdowns, preventing people to be able to connect with each other physically in the spaces that you mentioned. And therefore, the startup world is innovative by nature, and the world is now transformed because of technology. Technology has become affordable, accessible, available, and advanced, and digital technology has come to stay. And as a result of which, you are seeing this entire summit, which would otherwise have been held in a hotel or in some exotic place in Singapore or in Canada, is now being done over the net. And we are able to see the benefit of the Canadian space right there on the screen behind Ray. So, you know, this is the new reality, and this is the new norm. And the ability to adjust to this new reality for startups is going to be very, very relevant. How do they quickly adjust? How does the venture capital community adjust? How do the universities and the ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, which is present across the world, how do they adjust and actually take advantage of these newly found opportunities to connect, communicate, and to be able to grow? So from that point of view, I do think this is a very important topic for us to deliberate. Now, if you look at India itself, you know, I'm part of the Atal Innovation Mission, but I've been part of the corporate sector since '81 when I graduated from IIT Bombay. And the important thing that the COVID-19 crisis has done in a way that no other crisis probably would have triggered is that this has been a watershed moment in our history where the corporate industry, the government, and the rest of the world has woken up to the need and the power of startups. And that is, I think, a watershed moment, just like the Y2K industry grew. The IT industry in India, you know, at that moment, suddenly the world woke up to the Indian ITS capabilities, and it spawned a $190 billion ITS industry. Similarly, this COVID-19 crisis has revealed in its wake the tremendous energy and the power and the innovative capability that young startups bring, not only to address the COVID-19 related problems we're talking about, but also the post-COVID-19 world, you know, a disrupted supply chain, nationalistic fervors, inability to be able to physically travel and connect. And so how are we going to be very innovative? And that itself is reflected in the way technology companies are being perceived today. You know, new technology companies have just sprung in the horizon, whether it is in education, leveraging digital technologies, whether it is in healthcare, whether it is in manufacturing using IR 4.0 or 3D printing, robotics and automation, or whether it is AI-driven solutions, which have now become commonplace because of the fact that you are having sensory technologies, which is gathering data from man, machine, land, space, plant, soil, and be able to communicate at very high speeds using technologies like 5G, and being able to be processed at very high speeds because of nanocomputing, supercomputing, and so on. So this ability to converge on computer communication and database technologies and be able to process them for creating new opportunities and new solutions. And to also, the other challenges are the COVID-19 world, COVID-19 crisis has also woken us up to the need for sustainable development and sustainable innovations. In a world that is going to come tomorrow, you're going to have problems related to climate change, and that we have not yet faced such problems. So everybody is acutely aware that if you're creating an innovation, if you're creating a solution, it better be aligned to the sustainable development goals. And that is why you're finding companies like Tesla, or you're finding electric mobility, you're finding emission control, and all of these technologies now have a new spurt and a new opportunity to make an impact in the market as well as upon the lives of people. So I think this is, I'll stop there. I think this is a fantastic opportunity, and just want to end by saying that Atal Innovation Mission, which is seized with how do we create a culture of innovation first in a country which is 1.3 billion people. We have 1.4 billion schools. We have 10,500 engineering and related institutions. We have 39,000 colleges, and we have 150 million young students entering into the workplace. How do we ensure that we take these people along from a rote learning world into a problem solving, innovative world, so that we can become a nation of job creators, not just job seekers? And that is what is spurring our various initiatives, which include the tinkering labs in schools, the incubators, world-class incubators in our universities and research institutions, the New India challenges that we are launching across the country to address socio-economic products and services that will have national impact, and the community innovation centers that should bring the benefit of innovation to the rural masses, to the remote districts, the tribal districts, the hilly and coastal districts. Because if you do not bridge the socio-economic divide that is so very important, then you are not going to have a sustainable growth. So all of these, like I always say, India is 1 billion people with 1 million challenges. But 1 million challenges are 1 million opportunities for young startups to take, embrace, and fructify the possibilities that exist by solving those challenges.
Thank you, Mr. Ramnan. That was a phenomenal introduction to the Indian ecosystem and also the breadth of opportunities and challenges that are facing our entrepreneurs to really take them on and build the next generation of our ecosystem as we go along. And hopefully, this is a watershed moment for our entrepreneurs to really take this thing on rather than being, shriveled by it. They actually, expand and really, bloom in to their fullest potential. So I would like to invite Ray from the other side of the world to talk about what he's, seeing, what he's experiencing in Canada, North America generally, Mass being the largest, I guess, innovation hub in North America. What are the trends? What are the uh, things that he's seeing in that? So Ray.
Thanks, Ravi. I did my yoga before this call, but Ramanan is making me think I should have had coffee. I think that I think 2020 has brought with it great opportunity and great challenges, and I don't want to repeat too much of what has already been said because a lot of it has been covered, no matter where you are in the world. But I think look on the opportunity side, I think what this year has done with COVID and just the whole world dealing with a global pandemic. I mean, the word pandemic means global, right? It means that it's affected everyone. And, in one foul swoop, it made us realize that we're all connected. And, if we all have to act together, right? And that is really, it's become a watershed, for basically globally focused venture, right? And in this opportunity we have where we're much more aware of our codependence, it's also brought to light our ability to use technology to to actually stay together and to act together. As a startup, I spend a lot of time with startups in India. I spend time with startups in North America. I think, there's a greater opportunity than ever before to build a global startup. This is something that 2020 has made happen. The fact is, an inability to travel, if you think about what that is, it always, it was always a well-funded large company that could leverage having a lot of resources to put against travel to really serve global markets. What 2020 has done, with everyone going virtual, is it's even the playing field. And the result of that is that it's now technically possible for everybody to transact with everyone else in the world. That's a huge opportunity, right? So that's I think the huge opportunity that I see, and there's still challenges within that. The big challenge that's come about in 2020 is the fact that one of the ingredients for innovation is serendipity, right? Going to as you say, buildings like this one in my background, going to T-Hub, right? being able to participate in events, being able to show up at a coffee shop and run into people. That's how innovation actually happens. That's how ideas get socialized. And, even globally, I think in a world with travel, innovation definitely benefited from being able to make serendipity happen. With 2020, we've all tried very hard, to create environments, to create forums for serendipity to continue to happen. And, to be honest with you, it's come with its own set of challenges. And this facility is a 1.5 million square foot facility in Canada, right? And it is a physical structure, and it's actually the building that you see behind me is where insulin was actually invented by Banting and Best, right? Now, the challenge is that there's no one in that facility right now, right? I'm in Toronto. We're locked down. Most of the businesses are shut, right? It's really tough for serendipity to happen. So
We lost your voice,
That's right.
Ray.
Ray, we have lost your.
We can't hear you.
Okay.
There
Hang
we
on.
go.
Yeah,
One
and now we
second.
can hear you.
Now you can hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. So now you realize what happens when you're on the other side of the world.
Well, that's serendipity in a way.
Serendipity got lost for a second, but it's back. So anyway, it really does put a point though on how hard it is to, really come together as a group and share ideas. But very happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, Ravi, for inviting me and being to participate on the panel. Obviously, India and Indian diaspora are very close, to my heart, and entrepreneurship is obviously very close to my heart as well, and I'm happy to be here.
Great, thank you, Ray. This is a wonderful perspective from the other side of the world. So one of the things that I wanted to also bring to light in this discussion is that I feel that and a lot of us who are involved with incubators, accelerators, we are like the factory managers. We are able to produce great products. We can tinker the machinery, we can make it better, we can make sure the raw material is better coming into the factory, and then make sure that they actually are producing some of the best products that can come out of it. But in fact, who do we sell it to? Who do we collaborate to actually take it to the markets? Where is the demand coming from? And I feel a lot of the corporate partners that we have, or the government partners that we have across the world, they're probably the largest consumers of innovations that are coming from these startups. In fact, if they just open up a little bit of the demand, suddenly you have several hundreds of startups that benefit from the fact that suddenly people are not necessarily looking to innovate from within the internal resources, but actually open to the idea of bringing in innovations from outside of themselves to really build out their next generation products and services that they can take to their customers, right? So from that perspective, I wanted to get Aftab because of two things. One, obviously, Temasek being one of the largest sovereign funds that operates in Singapore, in the world rather, and of course the largest in Singapore, who is an investor in Singapore Telecom, Singapore Airlines, Singapore Power, and all those. That's one aspect of it. So obviously, for those large organizations to absorb innovations is one thing, and that's the context in which I met Aftab earlier on, where each one of them was looking to do their own fund, their own incubator, and so on and so forth, because they wanted to have to dip their toes in these waters of innovation. That was one way of doing it. But also, Aftab is now focused on Series B, Series C kind of investment. So obviously, for him, all the work that we do in the incubator accelerators is like the upstream, the deal flow, if you will, for what's coming to him for taking it further on through through his funding activities and so on. So I think it'll be really helpful, Aftab, to get your perspective on what you are seeing across the investments, the landscapes, not just from new deal, but also from the the startups that you already have invested in.
Yeah. No, thank you, and thanks for that, Ravi. And great to be on the panel with you and Ramanan and Ray. I think everyone captured it on the panel already very well, kind of the high level. And maybe I'd come at this topic from an investor perspective and kind of give my perspectives and kind of how we're dealing with this and how we're engaging with the early stage community, given the challenges, particularly that Ray and Ramanan already talked about. As background, our innovation team at Temasek, we engage with early stage startups, we engage with the VC funds, we engage with accelerators and incubators. And the idea is to invest either directly into them, into startups directly, or into venture capital funds globally, and even into accelerators and incubators, as well as we also have a lending platform, a venture debt platform that provides loans to startups. And the idea is it is two-pronged. One is the financial part, where from a investor perspective, we can invest early into companies, get to know them, and then write larger checks. And the second one that like Ravi mentioned is, how do we connect the dots between some of these early stage startups and the trends that are emerging with some of our large Temasek portfolio companies like Singapore Airlines or Singtel or DBS Bank or CapitaLand? And that to us is very critical and important. In fact, that's where Ravi and I first connected as part of his prior role in building a corporate accelerator for all our Temasek portfolio companies, or the major ones rather. I think what's happened over the last year or so, I think, is that for us it's been an interesting year. I think as we started off the year trying to figure out how to invest in the new normal, how to engage with VC funds, with accelerators, with startups, and I will say that looking back at the end of this year, this has probably been one of our most active years in the last 6 years since we've been setting up this program, and we've figured out a new way, a new normal of doing diligence on engaging with companies, engaging with startups. Like Ray mentioned, just not having that physical space has been a challenge, right? How do you engage with startups? How do you that whole digital versus physical divide? The fact that we lost network in the middle, right? Those are kind of small little challenges that we're dealing with. But we found new ways. We found new ways to meet companies, diligence startups. Even the demo days that we attend now is a completely different vibe altogether. But we're figuring out how to engage and do our diligence with companies, and more importantly, how do we connect the dots between some of these startups and some of our large corporates who are looking to engage them. And in fact, more than anything else, they're looking to engage them even more now, particularly in some of the areas where some of these startups have been generating a lot of tailwinds, whether it's in edtech, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in logistics. I think what's happened more than anything else is some of our corporates, and frankly, even our investment teams, are even more hungry to look at those sectors, look at those areas, and how we can not just invest, but create strategic partnerships with these companies. So, as a result, we've had one of our most active years from an investment perspective. We've had a mixed bag. Some of our startups are doing very well, or sort of rather riding the tailwinds of the pandemic. Some are struggling, some are suffering, and we're working with them to figure out how we create the sustainability for them to last through the next 6 or 12 months, hopefully until we get the vaccine. But overall, we're seeing, just as you saw probably earlier today with the equity markets and the DoorDash IPO and others. I mean, there's a healthy exit landscape emerging as well over the last 2-3 months we're seeing. And so I think you're going to see, more than anything else, even more activity. All the VC funds where we're LPs with or we engage with are as active, if not more active, than they've ever been. And in fact, are raising funds and raising some of the largest funds that they've ever raised during this time. So it's been interesting. I think for the first 6 months, we were sort of wait and watch mode to see how things would pan out. But we're adapting to the new normal. We're engaging more. We're creating a different way of engagement, both from a diligence perspective as well as from a partnerships perspective, and we're in the thick of it. So it's a different landscape, but I feel like we've found a new way to adapt Will this be the way we'd like to do business on a long-term basis? I think that's still out there, but it's still up for debate. But I think we found a way to engage and effectively work with the early stage community.
Great. Thanks, Aftab. Looks like your pivot, the immediate pivot seems to be working. Whether this is the long-term pivot, we'll have to see, I guess. Is that what
Exactly.
you're saying? Yeah. So I think our opening remarks itself sort of answered some of the other questions that I wanted to ask of you. But it'll be good to kind of crystallize some of your observations, which I think you have already spoken about to some extent. But I would like you to go back to each one of you and ask, okay, what are the two things that you think has either diminished, changed, or gone away in terms of opportunities for incubators, accelerators, those people that work with startups? What is the couple of things that you think are new emerging opportunities for incubator accelerators across the world? And if there are any business model changes that need to happen. So space, if that was a major opportunity for revenue, if that's gone away, what would be some other ways of doing things? How effective is digital interactions with startups going to be effective? And could the human in the entrepreneur really thrive without those human interactions? The way we actually encourage each other through just our own interactions and maybe through our own boasting of what we have accomplished to urge the next entrepreneur to do even better, right? So Mr. Ramanan, just wanted to see if you could shed light on some of the details of what you're seeing across all the work that you're doing across India.
Thank you, Ravi. And, from my perspective, there are very few things that have actually gone away or disappeared. What the COVID-19 crisis has done is actually opened up a whole new vista of new ways of doing things. So it's not that the COVID-19 is going to be there forever. Already the vaccines are out. You're going to have a restoration of normalcy over the next few years, or the next few months, I would say. So that's not what has really gone away. You're still going to be leveraging all the spaces and all the traditional ways in which you have been interacting with the startups. But what it has really brought to focus is a completely new way and an enhanced way of being able to address the growth of startups and the ability for you to support them. So from my perspective, we have now 70 incubators which have become operational, and T-Hub is one of those leading incubators from Atal Innovation Mission now to be able to also share your best practices across to the rest of the community, which was not there earlier. So how we are doing it is because of this digital medium and digital transformation and the ability to connect. So when I look at an incubator, today you have the opportunity to enhance and pivot on a number of things. First and foremost, you want to draw in innovation, not only from your local environment in which you were operating, but you are now having the ability to draw in innovation and innovators from across any part of the company or any part of the country, and indeed any part of the world. So now you have become almost by default the potential to become a global incubator or a global accelerator. Second is your ability to nourish innovation, which is what incubators and accelerators are all about. And you want to graduate them to a point of being able to stand on their own legs. That has increased because you have now an increased access to the networking opportunities, the collaborative opportunities that you're able to engineer. You're able to get a number of VCs. I mean, I would never have met Aftab or Ray. Traditionally speaking, maybe chance and providence would have brought us together, but now this has become a reality. On a daily basis, you're able to connect, and VCs are able to connect, and partners and mentors are able to access. So how do you leverage this? The third is the ability to carve out unique approaches for various startups. After all, an incubator or an accelerator needs to ensure that you don't have a cookie cutter approach for supporting startups who come to you. You need unique approaches because each one's demands and needs are different. But now that ability for you to be able to actually plug the person to, let us say, somebody who is doing on IR 4.0, connect them to a manufacturing company or connect them to an expert in 3D printing or robotics, that becomes so much more enhanced. The fourth is, business practices. and the business model, making our startups business savvy. That opportunity now has increased tenfold, because now you're able to connect and you're able to leverage best business practices, not only from India. If the startup says, hey, I'm creating a solution, but is it going to be applicable in Singapore or in Canada? You are able to immediately connect, and you're able to leverage the knowledge of best practices. I think incubators' agility has been increased tremendously. The opportunity for incubators to become more agile, to become more open, and to be able to build teams which are virtual in nature, not just physical in nature, that itself is a great power to the startups. And thereby, you are opening up new opportunities and new vistas for the startups and accelerators to be able to make a more impactful contribution. And finally, I think, the incubator is indeed creating, and the accelerator creates a robust ecosystem, not only for commercially driven innovation, but also for socially driven innovation. I've seen now in the last couple of months, the importance that social entrepreneurship and social innovation has got within the incubators fold and the accelerator fold, because we need to do that. And if you take a country like India with 600,000 villages and more than 715 districts, and 115 are aspirational districts, the need for social innovation and to be able to bridge that socio-economic divide is so very important. And the ability to support such social entrepreneurs has now increased manifold because of knowledge of what is happening across in the rest of the world, and the ability to support them from any part of the world. So I really see more pros than cons through all of this thing that have happened. And maybe I'm, as they say, an optimist, a pessimist optimist believes that this is the best of the world that he lives in, and a pessimist fears it is true. So I hope we all become more optimistic rather than being pessimistic about the situation.
Thanks, Mr. Ramnan. So I can attest to the fact that we thought when we were looking to work with the villages in Telangana. So I'm also the Chief Innovation Officer for the state. So I'm looking at working with social entrepreneurs, grassroots entrepreneurs, rural entrepreneurs as well, not just the tech entrepreneurs that sit or are associated with T-Hub. So we actually did a virtual thing, as in we said, okay, let's try and get design thinking into the curriculum of the schools across the state. And we were afraid that not many people would have smartphones, they don't have data connectivity, and so on and so forth. 5,000 teachers we trained in design thinking over a couple of days. And they were now supposed to teach the students. And imagine how many students we got to be part of this program. 33,000 students participated in this particular design thinking process, and they formed about, I would say, 10,000 teams. Now they're working on it, and the finale is going to be in the next couple of weeks. So it's an opportunity of a grand scale, like Mr. Ramanan said. The numbers are staggering, but would we have even attempted to do something like this before? I don't think so. It's just that we were pushed into doing this, and we just made it happen. I think this is a phenomenal attribution to this. But at the same time, just like Mr. Ramanan said, I threatened my startup saying, I'm not the only one who can confuse you. I can actually put you in touch with a mentor in Toronto, and he can confuse you as much. Mentoring, I use as confusion, but just to help them through their whole process. So this is absolutely a digital, opportunity to just get the right resources from wherever in the world to really do customer, the market validation at the same time. Bring in experiences that we may not have here locally that's available to us. So with that, Ray, would you like to talk about what you think has changed, diminished, gone away, and what you think is emerging as new opportunities? Any new business models that you're seeing for incubator accelerators?
Yeah, it's funny. When I built my first company, which was what brought me to India from Canada, there was no such thing as really an incubator or an accelerator. I'd never even heard those terms in 2008, 2009. It was pretty early days. And the journey, particularly in less mature ecosystems, right? Which was pretty much all the ecosystems outside of the valley. The reality was it was pretty tough as a startup entrepreneur to go out under your own roof and figure out how to build a business, right? And not only tough but lonely, right? And what amazed me as I saw ecosystems develop and places like T-Hub come about and Mars and WeWork and Springboard and all these others, right, was just the fact that these environments were being built to assemble communities around the startups, right? And the thing about, I talk about this a lot in the work that I do, but essentially to build a company, build a business, to get the word out, to hire, to raise capital, it all relies on what I boil down to as signal, right? And when you're a lone entrepreneur going out on your own for the first time, particularly, I mean, less of an issue when you're a 3 or 4 time entrepreneur and you've had a successful exit. But when you're a first time or second time entrepreneur, it's tough to generate signal. It's really tough. And, I think the model of incubators and accelerators really built methods of amplifying signal that were built around physical structures, right? Being in a building, being in a place, right, that was going to amplify your business to your market.
Ray, we lost you. We can't hear you anymore.
Oops.
Ray, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Okay, shoot.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Yeah, there you go.
We
I'm
missed
back
those
now.
pearls of wisdom for
Okay.
just about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
You were saying you can't hear me, and I would say, my wife would say that's a good thing. No, but so what's happening is it's forced that signaling to happen in different ways that aren't going to happen in a physical structure, right? And that's what I think we're all trying to figure out. So on one hand, there's this worldwide opportunity, global opportunity to build companies virtually. On the other hand, it's very hard because we're all sending the same signal the same way. I mean, when I left Techstars earlier this year and switched to Mars, right? The only thing that changed was the people in my Zoom screen, right? That's the only thing that changed. It's very hard to establish signal these days. So if you're a startup and you're building a company and no one knows you, it's harder than ever to get the word out and for people to see, the company that you are. One of the things I'm going to wrap up quickly because I know we don't only have like 12 minutes, but one of the things I think about with COVID is, it's like, when a flood, like floods your house and you all of a sudden have a reason to go and renovate the house. And when you renovate the house, you actually make it better and it serves the purpose, right? That you need it for right now. But before that, you weren't going to go and renovate it because it was just like too much to do. That's what happened in the world with the pandemic. It was a giant flood that basically caused us to have to renovate. And every single business around the world, that put off that renovation because they were so happy to keep doing things the way they were doing them, they've all had to update. They've all had to renovate. And that has created a lot of opportunity for everybody, right? And so I think there's a double-edged sword. I think we have this massive renovation underway of every single business, right? And at the same time, signaling has been impacted. So I think that's a live question. I don't think we have the answer to it yet, and I think we're still trying to figure it out.
And how quickly we renovated, Ray, it's a phenomenal.
We're still renovating. This is a long-term renovation. You don't want to see the bill on this renovation.
There was this startup called Big Basket in India. They actually wanted to go digital, and they had a 2-year plan, and all that they did it within 21 days. So it's just
Wow.
phenomenal. The kind of
That's amazing.
the push, the renovation, no, the urgency for the renovation. So they obviously are now doing very, very well in this new circumstances. So I will come to you, Aftab. You have been watching this also from afar, and you are also seeing that your own activity levels have gone up tremendously. So obviously these are startups that have gone through the process, and through the incubator accelerators. They have uh, got some of the fundamentals right, and now the foundations are strong enough for them to take it to the next level. So I just wanted to get your sense of what do you think are changing or disappearing
Sure.
in the space.
Sure. No, I'll keep it short because I know we're running out of time. But I think from an investor perspective, I think the 2 or 3 key things that we're seeing is that I think, particularly when we come in as an LP or when we come for the demo days to some of the accelerators that we're involved with, it's a completely different experience altogether, right? I think this whole physical digital divide is not ideal, right? I mean, as Ray and Ramanan have said, it is difficult for investors to truly engage with the startups and really get to understand their product or their technology sitting remotely through Zoom calls. And I think also I think even the vibe of the demo day and the kind of impact that it comes with the audience and with the participation and with the networking, with all that being lost, it's created a very different environment for us to be able to engage with the earlier stage folks. And I think that's something that I think all accelerators and incubators are dealing with right now, and hopefully that'll be resolved soon. But I think one of the key findings that we found, when we've engaged with some of these earlier stage startups, is that the ones that are going through the recent batches now, they tend to be, I guess, given the circumstances, they all joined the accelerators for hands-on mentoring and ecosystem support and things like that. What we're seeing now is that these startups have a lot more engagement with a lot more people, but they tend to be shallower versus working with key mentors who go deep dive and work with them. And as a result, you're seeing, based on the founders themselves, if they're more experienced and they've done this before, and this is their second or third time, this actually works well for them because they need more networks to go from a business development or things like that. Whereas the younger, more inexperienced startups or the founders, they are not necessarily benefiting from this because they don't have the ability to go deep dive into certain topics that they would have in normal times. At least that's the impression we're seeing. I think, and that is a challenge. I mean, so for us, especially for the first time, the more inexperienced founders, the full accelerator experience, I'm not sure they're getting. Now, again, I don't mean to generalize. These are the few that we're seeing, and I'm sure every accelerator is dealing with it differently. But I think on the positive, for us at least, is that as a result also of the situations they're dealing with, the accelerators are engaging with a lot more startups, right? They may only have a certain core batch of 8 or 10, but they're able to work with other startups as well in different ways. And as investors or LPs in them, we get to see a broader range of startups and more ideas and more. It's not clear whether they'll be part of the batch itself, but it helps also us to get more idea generation and kind of trends of how people are thinking about new areas. So that's been a positive. But the negative is the physical digital divide. I think there's still things that can be improved. Some are doing better, some haven't fully adapted, and some are even postponing their demo days as a result. But I think hopefully all that will sort of resolve itself over the next couple of months once the vaccine comes in.
Great. Thank you, Aftab. Just to add to what you just said, the whole process of working with startups for me is like, us going to a family doctor, and then the family doctor doing the initial work with us and helping us with the the issues that we are facing, and then eventually, if it is something that they feel requires a very specialized or a specialist to come in, then that would be the step number 2. So that that luxury of space and time to just kind of be able to speak to people, get your thoughts much more clear, much more very purposeful in the approaches that you would like to take. Once you establish a lot of those things, then to actually approach these specialists through a digital medium or otherwise, it becomes so much easier because you know what
Yeah.
questions to ask, you know
True.
what resources you would like to access, or who you want to, which customer you want to be connected to, so much easier. But that space to really, think it through and have those constant iterative interactions, I think
Yeah.
that's the piece that is missing for a lot of the first time
Yeah.
entrepreneurs,
Exactly.
or even people who just are in the initial stages of their, they may have been done, they may have done it before, but
Yeah.
they just are trying to get a better sense of whether they are on the right track, get some validation,
Exactly.
chipping
Agree.
away, not really validating as much. They do that too, but also chipping away the things that do not belong to that particular business model. I think that's where that initial interactions go missing. So
Correct.
I see that it's a huge opportunity for all of us, to really make a huge impact. In fact, at T Hub, we've said for every startup that is within the premises of the building. So we do have the building open now, so people do come in. It's
Oh,
not
okay.
fully occupied, but do people are coming in, and they don't come in all the time every day of the week, but they do come in whenever they do, because they do see the importance of talking to people, having those more serendipitous interactions. But for everyone that is there, we also feel that we have the opportunity now to impact or work with 4 other startups
Exactly.
outside. So
Yeah.
suddenly our capacity to do work is 5 times more than we
Mm-hmm.
had in the past, which would not have been thought as a
Exactly.
possibility had we just kind of done the organic thing little by little.
Yeah.
Suddenly we are now
Yeah.
doing all this digitally, and we say once in a while you need to come in for a certain workshop which we will run through, but otherwise it's pretty much something that we feel has opened up as a global possibility, a digital possibility that would not have been possible before. And the fact that I think we ourselves are pivoted to the extent that we continue to stay relevant to our corporate partners, our investor partners, to our startup, and all that. But would this actually play out in the long run? We will just have to see, and whether it is going to revert to the old ways of doing things, or would it be a happy combination of the new discoveries that we have had and the old norm that we feel still has a lot more relevance. That's yet to be seen. So with that, I would like to see if you had anything else to add, so that we can close the session. I think we are running out of time. How much? We have a couple of minutes. So Mr. Ramanan, can I request you to give us the closing remarks?
Yeah, thanks, Ravi. I think I just want to say it's been a fantastic deliberation right now, and it has opened up so many new ideas and so on. But I do hope, you said last time whether this will continue to be a new norm or not. I hope it does, because there is so much opportunity now for incubators, accelerators to be able to access a larger and a more robust ecosystem for their growth. And take, for example, we have been talking of this physical presence. I've been a great advocate of ensuring that you should have physical startups in a physical facility and so on. But now this has opened up my eyes on why do we always want to insist that this incubator should have all the facilities that a startup needs? Why don't you start networking? An incubator builds a network of universities, research institutions, and places where they are having the facilities closest to where the startup is, and the startup is able to avail of that, and you become sort of a guiding light for all of them. So the many things I can keep on saying on that, but I think let us all look upon this as a unique opportunity to reimagine the world of incubators and startups and accelerators, and see how we can create a larger, more vibrant, and a more accessible and a more value-adding ecosystem than what we have been providing so far. And I think that is the big opportunity and a big takeaway for all of us, not only from this session, but in the days to come.
Thank you, Mr. Ramnan. Thank you very much for your insights, and thank you, Ray. I know we have kept you far beyond your bedtime.
Happy to do it.
And
Happy
thank
to
you,
be here.
Aftab.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
It was an absolutely
Thanks.
wonderful session. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Namaste.